PR Connections Radio presents.
Welcome to Vegas Hockey Hub here in the sports entertainment capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm your host, Ian Rakelli, and we are on PRConnectionRadio.com, the voice of new media. Now, this is going to be our Game 2 recap between the Vegas Golden Knights and the Winnipeg Jets, Round 1 of the 2023 Stanley Cup playoffs. And man, what an eventful game this was. I mean, we came off of a Game 1 where the Winnipeg Jets beat Vegas 5-1. And a lot of people were wondering how Vegas was going to react in this game. How is it going to be heading into Game 2? And man, the atmosphere was a lot different, and the score was completely different. You had a situation where your Vegas Golden Knights beat the Winnipeg Jets 5-2. And it was a very interesting game and everything that was going on there. And we'll definitely break this down. So let's start with it. In the first period of the game, the Winnipeg Jets, they came out guns a-blazing as they had the first goal of the game. And the Winnipeg Jets made it a 1-0 affair when Adam Lowry had his third goal of the postseason. He got it at the 9-minute mark past Laurent Brisebois. And an interesting note was that Nate Schmidt, former Vegas Golden Knight, picking up his second assist of our postseason. I also want to mention that the Vegas Golden Knights only had 2 shots in the first 7 minutes. However, they made up for it in the long run, especially in a very good first period that ended up having around 15 shots on net. And at the end of the game, the Vegas Golden Knights had a near 40 shots on goal against Winnipeg in game 2. This was a very big shift from Game 1, where they had less than 20 shots on net. So an impressive turnaround for the Vegas Golden Knights, having nearly double amount of shots from Game 1. The physicality did not go down. As a matter of fact, it ramped up in Game 2. After having a holding penalty on Vladislav Nemestikov against Nicholas Hague, a few minutes later, Nick Hague had a tripping penalty against Blake Wheeler to set up that power play situation that eventually 2 minutes later turned into that Adam Lowry goal. Now, about 12 minutes into the first period, you had a bunch of shoving, a back and forth. You know, there was a lot of physicality, a good amount of hits in this game as well. As a matter of fact, the Winnipeg Jets had 73 hits against the Vegas Golden Knights. Vegas had a respectable 64 against Winnipeg. Now, we'll get towards the end of the first period where you had not one, but you had 2 altercations. About the 16-minute mark, you had Nick Waugh and Brendan Dillon both get roughing penalties against each other. It really looked like there was going to be a fight there. And then, with about 5 seconds left in the first period, Dylan Samberg and Ivan Barbashev, they had roughing penalties against each other. So it was a really fascinating situation about the fact that the Vegas Golden Knights and Winnipeg Jets, it's been a physical round 1 here in the Western Conference. I mean, we have seen Minnesota and Dallas. They've had some good back and forth. You have had in Edmonton and LA, Toronto and Tampa Bay. I mean, one outcome that I can say is a positive from your 2023 Stanley Cup playoffs is the amount of rough housing, a bunch of very tough series in the Stanley Cup playoffs. You're seeing a lot of physicality and wear and tear in the 2023 Stanley Cup playoffs. So that was in the first period. You had a bunch of, like I said, roughing penalties. You had 2 instances where a fight could have broken out, and it was a 1-0 game for Winnipeg. Now, in the second period, William Karlsson, Wild Bill, picked up his second goal of the postseason to tie it up at 1-1. He had assists from his line mates Phil Kessel and Riley Smith. That was about at the 5-minute mark. And after a interference penalty from Dylan Samberg onto Jack Eichel, about a half minute later, there was a hooking penalty with Chandler Stevenson to Dylan DeMello. However, don't mind that, because about 4 minutes later, the Vegas Golden Knights had their first lead of the series Jack Eichel with his first goal, his first postseason goal of his career at the 10-minute mark with assists from Alex Pietrangelo and Michael Amadio. And later in the game, about 4 minutes left in the second period, Winnipeg Jets Kevin Stenlund, who is on their fourth line center, he scored a goal with help from Dylan DeMello. A very notable part about that goal was Brayden McNabb. He fell down at the center ice, and it led to a 2-on-1 opportunity going the other way. And Stenlund picked up on the opportunity and put the puck in the back of the net. Now, it's very rare to see someone like Brayden McNabb make a mistake like that. Thankfully, it did not matter as much with the end result. So after leaving the second period, it was a 2-2 hockey game heading into the last period. And thankfully, this line picked up the momentum. Now, it was documented earlier in this series that Chandler Stevenson and Mark Stone would be back together as line mates. Chandler Stevenson and Mark Stone have been on the same line for the past 4 seasons when they've both been healthy. Well, tonight, it was provided very informational and very worth with Mark Stone and Chandler Stevenson, as with 5 minutes into the third period, Chandler Stevenson put them back in the lead. It was a 3-2 game. Chandler Stevenson with assists from Alex Pietrangelo and Mark Stone. And then about 7 minutes later in the game, Mark Stone gets a help from Chandler Stevenson and Brett Howden to make it a 4-2 game for the Vegas Golden Knights. Mark Stone, if you saw his reaction from the goal, he was not only excited, but he was like a 5-year-old kid once again. I mean, Mark Stone, he seemed like he was the happiest guy at the T-Mobile Arena, jumping up and down, pounding against the boards. He had all 5 of the guys in the huddle. It was just a really incredible scene to see Mark Stone, after having that surgery and missing near 40 games of the season, to come back and get his first postseason goal since being back from that injury. And then about 4 minutes later in the game, Mark Stone put the nail in the coffin for the Winnipeg Jets as he scored his second goal of the game and second goal of the postseason, as they were 5-2. Now, I'm going to give a lot of credit to William Karlsson for this goal, because the way he set it up, being behind the net, he would be able to take the puck away, shoot it right to Mark Stone, which was in the middle of the ice, and hear him to fire it past Connor Hellebuyck for the 5-2. Now, if I have to give a lot of praise here, I'm going to start out with that third line. Now, Bruce Cassidy did something very smart. He started out the game with the lines as from game 1. And there was a lot of question marks as to why Bruce Cassidy would keep the same lines from game 1 into game 2. But Bruce Cassidy, being the genius coach that he is, he made a valuable change. Towards intermission, he decided to make some line changes, and the third line then became Chandler Stevenson, Mark Stone, and Brett Howden instead of Michael Amadio, who went to the first line. Ivan Barbashev went to line 4 to take in place of Brett Howden. So the lines after the intermission went from the first line being Jonathan Marchessault, Jack Eichel, and Ivan Barbashev, to Michael Amadio, Jack Eichel, and Jonathan Marchessault. The second line stayed the exact same. It was Kessel, Karlsson, and Smith. Line 3 went from Stevenson, Stone, and Amadio to being Howden, Stevenson, and Stone. And line 4 went from Waugh, Kolesar, and Howden to being Barbashev, Kolesar, and Waugh. And I really believe that Bruce Cassidy doing this was a successful move and actually was the best idea. For him to change up the lines midway through the game, it really provided some solid opportunities for Vegas, and it really capitalized in the third period when Stevenson and Stone started scoring. In fact, that line scored every single goal after the second period. So them having Brett Howden be with Stevenson and have Howden be with Stone was a right move by Bruce Cassidy. And I will not be surprised if in the next game in Winnipeg, your Vegas Golden Knights keep that line similar to what we saw in the last period. As a matter of fact, I would kind of put a little bit of a bet out there that the Vegas Golden Knights will probably keep some of the line changes they did in this game tonight, moving forward in this series against Winnipeg. So as we are talking about our Game 2 recap of the Vegas Golden Knights and Winnipeg Jets here on Vegas Hockey Hub, I'm your host, Ian Rakelli. We are here on PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media. Now, the second compliment I have to give is our fan base. All right, it doesn't matter if we're losing, doesn't matter if you're winning. The Vegas Golden Knights have arguably the most passionate fan base in hockey. Vegas Golden Knights fans are energetic, electric. They are the most exciting and they are the most charismatic fans I've ever seen in hockey. The way they can generate momentum and the way they can dictate how a game goes is absolutely exceptional. Now, I will also give credit to the fans here. When Mark Stone scored that goal, when the announcer announced that Mark Stone had scored the goal, he pretty much got a standing ovation. If you go back to the telecast and listen to when they announced that Mark Stone scored the goal, all 18,000 people at T-Mobile Arena were cheering and yelling when he announced that Mark Stone scored. Because these fan base knows how valuable Mark Stone is. Vegas Golden Knights fans are well aware why Mark Stone is the captain of your Vegas Golden Knights. So it was a very nice touch to see the fans get excited when Mark Stone's name came up after the announcer announced he scored the goal and put them up 4-2. Now, if I was going to do a 1-star, 2-star, and 3-star, I'm going to give, obviously, I got to give the first star to the goaltender, okay? Former Winnipeg Jet, Laurent Brossoit. What an incredible performance from him. He had 31 out of 33 shots he saved on net. He had a near 94% save percentage. And Brossoit had a very tough game one. In fact, I was very critical of him when we did our recap show on Tuesday night. We recapped game one. I thought that there was a few opportunities that he missed in game one. Man, oh man, did Laurent Brossoit make up for it. I mean, he had a near perfect game when it came to a goaltender. There was plenty of shots Winnipeg could have gotten off, but he made the opportunities count. He put himself in the right scenario, right positioning, and he made the correct save. So, Laurent Brossoit, he would be my first star, absolutely. My second star would have to go to Mark Stone. Mark Stone is a guy that really changed this game. I mean, not just from his 2 goals, but the fact that he even got the assist on the Chandler Stevenson goal. It really told me that Mark Stone will definitely be a huge factor in not just this series, but if they make it out, the entire postseason for your Vegas Golden Knights. Your captain of your Vegas Golden Knights, he is going to be, whether people like it or not, he is going to be an X factor for Vegas in this postseason, no doubt about it. And my last star of the game, my third star of the game, would be Chandler Stevenson. I just got to say that Chandler Stevenson having 2 points in this game, a goal and an assist, but he was there all night. When you watch the telecast, Chandler Stevenson was making moves all night long. He was always in the action. He caused a lot of interesting notes to happen. And I will say that Chandler Stevenson and Mark Stone being back together as a line is very good for the Vegas Golden Knights moving forward. Now, if there's any other notable things that happened in Game 2, well, first off, there was the Jack Eichel situation. Jack Eichel and Vladislav Namestnikov, they had a good shoving match towards the second period. You had some good back and forth where you had guys pushing and shoving all night long. And outside of the Sandberg and Waugh, and outside of maybe Dylan and Waugh, you really didn't see any fights. There was nobody who dropped the gloves, anything like that. But you did see some good old fashion hockey where everyone was trash talking, some good back and forth every single game. That is what old school hockey was, and that's what tonight was. I also have to say the defense did a better job at protecting Brisebois. That was one of my main critiques in game one, was it felt like the defense was letting down our goaltending. I felt like our goaltending was being left out to dry in the last game, and defense really helped out. You saw more guys standing in front of the net, taking pressure off of Laurent Brisebois, and I could really admire that. So I would say for game two, the defense did a lot better job. The sloppy passing from game one nearly went away. And I will say that when it comes to what they did on the faceoffs, the Vegas Golden Knights, I actually say they did a lot better job. In fact, they had the most faceoffs won in this game. So it really felt like the couple of mistakes the Vegas Golden Knights made in game one were fixed in game two. Now, let's go over the stats for game two. So the shots, the Vegas Golden Knights had a near 40 shot performance. Winnipeg Jets, 33. The Winnipeg Jets, 73 hits, 64 for Vegas. The Vegas Golden Knights had a 52% face-off win percentage. The Winnipeg Jets had 47. You also had 4 power play opportunities for the Vegas Golden Knights compared to only 3 for the Winnipeg Jets. The only difference is that the Winnipeg Jets had a power play goal. That was the said Adam Lowry goal from the first period. The Vegas Golden Knights went 0 for 4 on the power play. I also have to mention that the penalty minutes, Winnipeg had 12, Vegas had 10. Also, there was more blocked shots for the Winnipeg Jets with 16 compared to Vegas's, who only had 12. The takeaways for the Vegas Golden Knights, 11 takeaways for Vegas was also very valuable for Vegas in game two. I mean, to have that many takeaways is really good. Only 9 giveaways for the Vegas Golden Knights. Meanwhile, the Winnipeg Jets had a whopping 16 giveaways. So it really tells you the whole story there. The fact that the Winnipeg Jets had 16 giveaways and only 4 takeaways, whereas the Winnipeg Jets only had 6 total penalties. I mean, this is a Vegas Golden Knights team that took advantage of mistakes by Winnipeg. To put it nicely, it is a reverse of game one. Game one, Vegas made mistakes and Winnipeg took advantage of it. Game two, Vegas took advantage of Winnipeg's mistakes and it cost Winnipeg dearly. Now, on Saturday, which is going to be an afternoon game, we are going to be doing our preview show and recap show as normal. Our recap game will be, like I said, a half hour after the game ends, just like we did tonight. Our preview show is a half hour before the game, so that'll be very fun to watch. So once again, check that out on Vegas Hockey Hub. We also will be doing our annual show Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. here on PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media. And, when it comes to the Vegas Golden Knights, so far, you're only 2 games in, of course, so it's a very small scale. But the Vegas Golden Knights, up to this point, 2 games in, what really stands out to me is that the Vegas Golden Knights so far are playing a style of game that Bruce Cassidy had in Boston. In fact, you can see a lot of influence the Boston Bruins of last year and the Vegas Golden Knights this year have had. I mean, you can see that Boston last year was a physical team. That Boston was a team that was all about, attacking the net. It was about making line changes. It was about doing all these necessary changes to win hockey games. Whereas you have the Vegas Golden Knights now making line changes during intermission, making plenty of hits. Like I said, 60-plus hits in game 2. I also have to mention that they're not making as many penalties as they did last year. I mean, I've made complaints in the past that the Vegas Golden Knights had too many penalties in recent postseasons. Whereas in this season, 5 penalties against Winnipeg, that is not bad for the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, I'm going to go into the rest of the NHL very quickly. Let's just go around the NHL. The Toronto Maple Leafs beat the Tampa Bay Lightning 7-2 to tie up the series at 1 apiece. They're going to be heading back to Tampa Bay heading into this weekend. So you're going to have the 2-time Stanley Cup champion and the 3-time Stanley Cup final recipient, Tampa Bay Lightning. And they're going to be at home at the Amalie Arena taking on Toronto. You also had the New Jersey Devils and New York Rangers, the Battle of the Hudson. New York Rangers scored 5 goals against New Jersey to make it a 2-0 series for New York. And they are going to be heading to Madison Square Garden. You're going to be heading to the most iconic arena in North America. You're going to be heading to the Mecca of New York. And it's really going to be fascinating to see the energy in the crowd and the energy of Madison Square Garden as the New York Rangers are going to be at home this weekend, taking on the New Jersey Devils and are up 2-0. You also have the Colorado Avalanche and Seattle Kraken. Now, Seattle Kraken took a 2-0 lead in the beginning of the game. Colorado had a late comeback to win 3-2 and to tie it up at 1 apiece. Now, the great news is for Seattle Kraken fans is this upcoming weekend, you are going to be having Stanley Cup playoff hockey. The Seattle Kraken are going to be having playoff hockey at Climate Pledge Arena. So that's going to be amazing for all of our fans out in Seattle. The fact that you are going to get to see your Seattle Kraken play playoff hockey, it's going to be incredible. And I also want to do a brief mention of what's going to happen coming up. So on Friday, you are going to be having the New York Islanders have a 2-0 deficit against Carolina. Will be at the UBS Arena, the newest arena in the NHL. You also have the Boston Bruins and the Florida Panthers, and they will be playing at Sunrise. And Boston Bruins tied at 1 apiece. Hopefully, President's Trophy curse does not affect Boston. We'll have to wait and see on Friday. Also, the later games on Friday, you will have the Dallas Stars and the Minnesota Wild. You're going to be having a matchup that has been very interesting up to this point. Game 1 was multiple overtimes. Game 2, Marc-Andre Fleury just came up a bit short as the Dallas Stars scored 7 goals that night. And then the latest game will be the Edmonton Oilers, led by Connor McDavid, the best hockey player in the world, as they'll be going to the Crypto.com Arena, heading to LA, taking on the LA Kings. And based off of what I know about LA Kings fans are passionate, LA Kings fans are loud, and LA Kings fans always get ready when playoffs start. So you're going to have some fantastic games on Friday, and then on Saturday, you're going to have the afternoon game with Winnipeg and with Vegas. You're going to be going to the MTS Palace out there in Winnipeg, and it is going to be an amazing series to watch, not just because of how electric Winnipeg Jets fans are, but also how insane Winnipeg Jets fans become when playoffs hit. I mean, this is a Winnipeg Jets fan base that will wear all white to a game. This is a Winnipeg Jets team that will represent an entire province and will do it proudly out there in Manitoba. So you're going to have Vegas versus Winnipeg at 1 o'clock. At 4 o'clock, you're going to have Toronto versus Tampa, like I mentioned earlier. And you're going to have New Jersey versus New York at 5, and Seattle versus Colorado at the 7 p.m. time slot. So, once again, for all the people watching around the world, this was our Game 2 recap of the Vegas Golden Knights and Winnipeg Jets here on PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media. This is Vegas Hockey Hub. I'm your host, Ian Rickelli, and I want to mention to everyone watching around the world, Saturday at 8 a.m. will be our normal show that we do every single day at 8 a.m. And then at noon will be our Game 3 preview show between Vegas and Winnipeg. And then about 4 p.m. will be our Game 3 recap like we did in Game 1, as we're doing right now in Game 2. So this was a fantastic edition of Vegas Hockey Hub. This was our Game 2 recap between Vegas and Winnipeg. It was a great game. The Golden Knights can win this series, no doubt. And until next time, I'm your host, Ian Rakelli, and continue watching hockey. Go support junior hockey and go Knights. Go.